Hello and welcome to Ditching Hourly. I'm Jonathan Stark. And today I am joined by guest Lynn Safranek. Lynn, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jonathan, how are you?
Excellent. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks.
So today we are going to talk about a classic case of what I think I would refer to as upstream contributions. So if you don't know what that means, dear listener, then stay tuned. But first, Lynn, can you tell folks a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I am a Chicago-based communications consultant, and I work with organizations and guide leaders through complex communications challenges, whether those are reputation challenges or they're launching a new program or have a leadership change. I can turbocharge their often very small teams' efforts by providing communications, strategy, working on messaging, content, and really being the calm, focused person who can help them through that challenge with clarity.
Cool. So thanks for that. And we basically the the basis of this show comes from an email. You replied to one of my emails. I think it was like, how much is a seatbelt worth or something like that.
Right.
And you described a classic scenario. Do you think you could restate that for the listener?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a very common communications challenge, you might have a client who comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to boost my reputation, and I'd like to do that by, or one way to do that is by engaging with the media." So, pitching to trade organizations, thought leadership, appearing, talking with reporters, sharing your expertise on trends in the industry. And there are, risks to that. And there also are no guarantees that you'll actually get that coverage. So I could work with these clients, help them determine, their expertise, come up with messaging, give them training. But it might be a while before the right opportunity hits where we have a chance to get them in front of reporters. Or this is common. You interact with reporters and pitch the person. The reporter ignores the email, but maybe months later they come back and say, "Hey, I remember hearing about that person. I'd like to talk to them now." So how do you price around something like that?
Yeah. So in particular, you're asking about value pricing in the email, I think. So yeah, this is an extraordinarily common situation. I can think of examples. Even I'm on the buy side of some of these. So for example, I recently hired a podcast booking agency, which is not dissimilar to this. I mean, it's a very different thing, but it's not dissimilar to the uncertainty that you've just outlined there, where they're like, well, we can pitch you to all of these shows and we'll do all of these things to make it more likely that they'll let you on. And these are the reasons why we think you should go with us, because we've got a better reputation or connections with these podcast hosts. But really, what do I want? I want to show up on more shows, good shows, like the appropriate shows. I want to show up on lots of good shows where there's the kinds of people that would potentially be in my audience. That's all I care about. And if they said, yes, we can 100% guarantee that you will be on, 10 shows a month with a good target audience of this size, and it's $10,000, I'd probably say, yeah, if they could do that every month or some number, but it'd be like, but that's not what they're promising. What they're promising is we're going to do all of these things to increase your odds of getting on these shows. So it's sort of probabilistic. It's almost like I'm kind of gambling that this list of things they said they're going to do and this list of connections that they claim to have will probably, like 85% chance that they're going to get me on 3 shows a month for as long as I feel like doing it. And I don't know that up front. Maybe they've got testimonials or other people have said it worked for them, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for me. So it's kind of like a similar thing where I don't expect them to say like they'll definitely get me on 10 shows, but I would expect to definitely get on 2, or, you know what I mean? So there's like a range where I'm willing to take some risk. Perhaps they're taking some risk as well, because it might take a lot of work to get me on these shows because maybe I'm a bad speaker or something like that. So both parties are taking a little bit of risk, but they never asked me from a pricing standpoint. They didn't ask me why I wanted to be on podcasts in the first place. They just assumed like I made a good decision deciding that I should be on podcasts. And they certainly never questioned it from a pricing standpoint. So I kind of want to go there.
Okay.
But when a client came to you and wanted, what would be an example client request? So like, give me like a typical kind of client and then a typical kind of request that you feel like would fall into this category.
So, unhypothetical, we are XYZ organization has been in the news for people are attacking them in the news in different ways.
Okay.
And XYZ organization wants to get their story out there more. So, why, how can they get their story out there more? How can they build trust with journalists so that the journalists come to them more often and are more likely to reach out for comment or come to them and trust them as a source of information.
Okay. Perfect. So can you think of an example, maybe not one of your clients, but can you think of an example that people might be familiar with? Are we talking about like Amazon or are we talking like,
Um,
local pizza places?
oh, n- bigger than between Amazon and local pizza places.
Okay. So like maybe a think tank or,
Yeah, that's a good example. So like a nonprofit would be a good way of looking at it.
okay. And so, I mean, there's some nonprofits that are pretty big.
Like a nationally recognized nonprofit.
Okay. Like Red Cross or something like that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So who would come to you from the Red Cross? Who is this person? Are they like, what's their job title probably?
It could be anyone. I've had members of the board of trustees come to me. I've had leaders of the organization come to me. I've had comms VPs come to me with
Okay.
questions along these lines. So it could be
Okay.
anyone in those positions.
Okay. And let's say they come to you with a self-diagnosis of we need more. And what is the thing they think they need? So they want to get their story out there. We're
Mhm.
getting one-sided attacks in the news. People aren't hearing our side of the story. They think they need more media coverage. What kind of media coverage? Like, since I'm not really in the space.
They want their names in front of uh, people who are decision makers. They want their side of the story in front of decision makers.
Okay. So if they were going to say, we're talking about the comms director, the Illinois Red Cross,
Right.
who are the decision makers?
So that might be state lawmakers, that might be fellow trade organizations, maybe business leaders, Chicago business leaders.
Hmm.
Can't think of who else the Illinois Red Cross might, who they would want to have a reputational boost in front of, but that those
Okay.
areas come to mind.
Okay. So in the spirit of a why conversation, I'm going to try and talk them out of this as an idea.
Okay.
So I could put together a press release. We could get your messaging together, decide what the story is, make it compelling. We could try and reach out to all these sort of mainstream journalists and try and maybe someday they'll write a story about this or we'll find some angle that ties into the headlines that is going to maybe have them write about this. But
Mm-hmm.
couldn't we just put flyers under their windshield wipers on their cars at the state house? Like, isn't there a more direct way that we could do this? Couldn't we target them with Facebook ads? Like, why is media coverage the right thing? Why not something else?
Right. So I guess from a PR practitioner's point of view, it's that independent third party endorsement. So you can buy advertising all day long, but that
Mhm.
independent third party endorsement counts for a lot more. And it's also gets to something I've seen you talk about lately in your newsletter, the difference between SEO and GEO. There's growing evidence that, Chat GPT and the like draws from news coverage rather than what they're scraping from Google.
Okay.
So, I wouldn't present that as the end all be all, this is exactly why, but it is a pretty strong endorsement to have the news present your story in a way that's favorable and gets your key messages across.
Okay. And if you ask this comms director from the Illinois Red Cross, they'd probably be able to tell you how much coverage are you getting now?
Right.
And let's just throw a number out there. Like, how would they say the answer to that question?
Oh, they might say, we appear in local media 3 times a month. And I'm just hypothetically and not to slander the Illinois Red Cross because I don't know if this is true or not. And we had this huge thing happen a month ago, and we made national news for reasons we didn't want to make national news. So there's been some fallout from that.
Okay. And how much? But it's related to the local story. Like
Right, right.
okay,
Something happened. Yeah, that's how things work in Chicago. Something happens locally, and it
goes viral. Yeah.
goes viral.
Okay. So, what about the quality of the outlet? Is there any difference between
There's
quality?
absolutely.
Okay,
Correct.
so they're in maybe they're getting covered 3 times a month locally. Are they happy with the quality of the publications?
Yeah, that would be a question to ask. Yeah,
Let's say they're not.
let's say they're not.
Yeah.
And the reason they're coming to me is we're not happy with how our messaging is showing up, which there are things I can do to boost the probability of it getting better.
Right.
But there's no guarantee.
Right. So to me, that's almost the table stakes of it. That's the thing that you can control. You can control. You can control like what you present to the world. Like you can help them refine their message. It might not ever get communicated anywhere, but I feel like that would be the thing that you could craft and be like, okay, get agreement with the client. Like this is the way you want the story told. You believe in your professional opinion that it is compelling, increase the odds of it getting picked up. But at least it's the thing you have direct control over.
You would have control over setting your own messaging and seeing how it's pulled through in your what we call owned channels. So on your LinkedIn page, in let's say you have a blog. So are the stories that you're picking to represent your organization on that blog, do they represent your key messaging? So making sure it's threaded in all these places.
Okay. And what is this communications director? Let's say it's Alice. Alice knows that right now they're getting picked up maybe 3 times a month from publications. And on top of it, the messaging it's not even great. It's not the way they want to be perceived. How does she, this is going to sound like a dumb question, but how does she know it's not the way they want to be perceived?
It could be that their key messaging isn't showing up in those stories. So their people aren't trained to deliver those messages when they're being interviewed.
Okay.
Or yeah, so that's one way.
Okay.
It could be the outlets are getting facts wrong, and we don't have the bandwidth to follow up with reporters and correct the record.
Okay. And this is again, there's going to be a lot of stupid questions.
No.
Why does Alice care that these things are not ideal?
It has a reputational effect. So people don't know us for the reasons why we want to be known. And donors are seeing this. Our board is seeing this.
That's what I was going for. Who's telling her?
That's stakeholders.
And presumably she'd be on the hook. Like she's the one that's going to get in trouble.
Right. Yep.
Okay. So if you could fix this, if you could wave a magic wand and fix this, it would be good for her professionally in her career, or at least her experience of going to work and not getting yelled at, but also the overall organization. So it's the incentives are aligned between her personal career goals and the organizational goals. So that's good.
Yeah.
It's not always the case.
Okay.
So she knows. If we had Alice here, I would ask her, like, what are some of the things that the stakeholders have said? Like, what are the things that they're noticing? What are the things that are really ticking them off? She could definitely answer that. She could probably answer it off the top of her head without even going back, maybe just checking her email. So these are things that are bad. Now what we want to do is, what does good look like? So if the magic wand was waved, what reporter would have written what words in what publication? And how many of those do you want? You're never going to have full coverage. You're never going to, it's not like, realistically speaking, what would be an improvement over the kind of improvement that she would like to enjoy from the current situation of 3 per month of not so great articles? She want to have like 100 amazing articles in the trade journals that are specific to the state house, or
it could just be as simple as I want our key messages to get pulled through. To which I would say, okay, let's make sure we've got your key messages defined, and let's get your leaders trained up so that when they're telling stories, they're relating information about what the Red Cross does. They're making sure to hit on those points.
Break down pulled through for me.
Pulled through. So, when the article shows up in the outlet, they're quoting your leader as saying, yeah, yes, of course the Red Cross saved the day in this case. We're community focused. We love being in Illinois, and we'll always be there for people.
The leader said the right talking points, and the talking points appeared verbatim, basically. Okay. Now they must care about, like you said, the sort of you can buy ads all day long, but if some outlet decided to report on you, that confers some authority. Mm-hmm. There's got to be. We already started to touch on this, but like, Alice, ideally, what are the top 5 outlets or reporters that you would want, to get coverage from? And that might even go into, and you might just immediately look at them and be like, oh, I know these 2 guys. I can definitely, high odds of being able to get these people. These are long shots. Maybe that becomes reflected in your proposal, or maybe that is, either in terms of probabilities or in terms of pricing tiers. Because maybe for the long shots, maybe there's something heroic that you can do. Maybe it's not even something that you currently do. Maybe it's something that you price so high that you hire someone who has a different skill set than you to do this particular thing. Mm-hmm. So let's say she said, I don't know. I mean, you're in this space. Like, can you come up with maybe a small name, a medium name, and a large name in terms of outlets that Alice might be interested in?
Sure. She could say, Chicago Tribune, WGN, WBEZ. So, radio, print, and TV.
Oh, okay. Well, those seem all big to me.
No, sorry. Maybe I was thinking of my ideals. Let's say Chicago Tribune, Block Club, which is a hyperlocal news outlet, and what would be medium?
Radio would probably be podcast.
Sure, yeah. So maybe there's like a talk radio station. So that would be small, or small to medium.
Okay. The 3 big ones, though, were the Chicago Tribune, WGN, and the last one was...
the NPR, yeah.
Okay. So, realistically speaking, would she be... Okay, so if we're going to say perfect world, magic wand, we've got this one success metric is that the messages are appropriate and getting pulled through. Mm-hmm. And the next success metric is biggest outlet possible. Mm-hmm. With the possible, the Tribune, WGN, and NPR being like the top, like that would be a home run. Realistically speaking, how much coverage would they be wanting to get?
I think I would advise that one solid hit per month would be above and beyond. So one for that size of an organization, one where all the stars align, your messaging is pulled through, favorable coverage.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Now now we've sort of defined the current state, bad messaging getting reported infrequently in lame publications. And what we want is great messaging getting pulled through on big outlets, maybe one hit a month. The frequency maybe goes down, but probably it'll get picked up in all the other little ones too if it's going on these big ones. So the frequency will probably go up as well. What will that... This is a weird question in this particular example, but I'll ask it anyway. How will they know that happened? Like, the communications director is not watching TV and listening to the radio all the time. Like, how do they get notified that these things happened?
There's media monitoring. Okay. Organizations of medium to large sizes typically have media monitoring services where you get a report either daily or weekly of where your name is appearing in the news.
Okay. So ideally, the frequency and quality of the hits will increase. And if if they get one solid hit per month, they're probably getting 5 less solid hits, right? Like from the smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Now let's say that is accomplished. Let's
Hmm.
fast forward, time machine, it's done. What changes for Alice and what changes for Alice's boss and Red Cross and these other people?
Oh, Alice is on top of the world. She's seen as a media maven. Uh, Alice's boss gets pats on the back from trustees. They can leverage all that great media coverage into potentially communications to donors. You know, look how great we are at fulfilling our mission. All their key messages about how they fulfill their mission are getting pulled through, so they
Okay.
can really leverage all that coverage in ways that benefit them.
And I heard donors in there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Money.
yeah.
It's a metric.
So in the past, would Alice have any examples of like a home run, communications home run, or a media home run translating into like a past home run? Like what was that like?
Yeah, she might have that, something like that, right?
Okay.
With the effect.
Yeah, like that Exxon Valdez thing, and we came and saved all the ducks and or whatever, and that like we made hay off of that for 10 years
Mm-hmm.
through donations or whatever. Okay, so one tricky piece here is Alice is probably not the economic buyer. So, how much budget would the communications director at the Illinois Red Cross probably have autonomy over? Like how much can she spend without getting approval from anyone else?
Without getting approval from anyone else, let's just say 10 grand,
Okay.
without having to go for approvals above that, or without
Hmm.
having to, required to do an RFP.
Okay. So her limit is probably 10K
Per month. Yeah, it might just be per contract.
per month or
But,
project.
you know, I would say if a contract is worth, that would be splicing and dicing. That would be unique to them. Um, some organizations, you don't need approvals for those kind of recurring, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're right. It would be different, if you're talking to the CEO or same organization, different situation, or CEO at a much smaller organization, different situation. Let's just say that through the conversation, that they've got a really compelling, or you believe that they have a really compelling story that's not getting told.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose I would go back and forth with Alice and say, like, okay, so let's pretend the Exxon Valdez response was a big win for the Red Cross. Let's just pretend that. So, okay, that was like, can you ballpark quantify what that did for donations in the first year after it happened? Like, was it $1 million in donations? And she'll say
Right.
something like, oh, it was 10 times more than that. Or she'll say, oh, no, it was more like 100,000. Like, if you throw a number out, she'll be like, oh, I'm sure it was $1 million in donations in the first day. So you'd say, okay, do we have anything like that here? Probably not. But what's the magnitude of the story here? Is it, I don't know, I have no idea. Like, there was a tornado in rural Illinois somewhere, and I don't know, but there's
Right.
something that they're mad. Like everybody is upset inside the organization that some important, compelling story is not getting told properly. So let's just say that it's not. You don't believe that's like national news, but it's really big local news,
Mm-hmm.
statewide, uh, potentially important to politicians, but super important to donors, and it'll give them like a marketing fundraising drive campaign for maybe a year. So you're like, okay, realistically, this is no Exxon Valdez, but that was $1 million in like one day. So maybe this is, I don't know, if you had like a huge hit like this, and then you could replay it for in all of your email marketing and so forth. I mean, could that bring in 500 grand in the course of a
Right.
year? Could it bring in $1 million in the course of a year? I don't know what
Right.
scale that they're operating at. And let's just say it's 100 grand. That makes things easy, especially if she has a $10,000 budget, because you could say, okay, and now we get to get into the likelihood, the different probabilities. So let's just say she's like, oh, if we had one big story at NPR, God, 100 grand sounds too low, even in this example. But let's just say if we had one big hit on NPR alone, then that would probably be 100 grand for that month, never mind the year. So the different probabilities here are your ability to craft the message, craft the
Mm-hmm.
story. Is it your responsibility to train the executives?
Yes. Let's just
Okay.
say yes.
Or maybe that's option 2 or option 3 or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Okay.
And you've got, so crafting the message, you got good control over that.
Mm-hmm.
Training the executives, less control over that, but some direct influence.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a higher level option. And then getting the thing, like you could get highly targeted and just go after those 3 or like really hardcore. Maybe that's not your skill set, but if it's worth enough money to Alice, and let's say you had $50,000 to work with to get one thing on NPR, would that change your ability to do that versus you only have $5,000 to work with to get something like dedicated just to that piece? So like, let's say, I mean, I'm going to go crazy here and say like you could, if you had unlimited budget, let's say unlimited budget,
Right.
you could hire a private investigator to find the person and like
Right.
accidentally run into them, or you could go crazy, right? You could
Right.
really find whatever, lavish them with gifts or whatever works, whatever, getting to know the person, taking out the whole entire newsroom to wherever, Joe Stone Crab or something.
Yeah.
uh so if you had an unlimited budget, what and you're really thinking outside of the box, including hiring other people,
Mm-hmm.
contractors, temp people, and you had unlimited budget, how much do you think you could improve the odds of getting one of these hits?
So I think what improves the odds of getting a hit is how good the story is.
Okay.
So it's really the quality of the story and the quality of the pitch. I think as a former journalist myself, I think reporters who are wined and dined realize they're being wined and dined.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so it really is the quality of, the communications professional to spot the story, uh, realize what good hooks into it can be, maybe that piggyback on different trends or relate to different issues happening within the city. Uh, I don't know that me having a huge budget is going to make that much of a difference.
Okay. So what about the story?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
you had
Okay. Okay.
unlimited budget to make the story better, or
Yep.
make a
Yep, yep,
better
yep.
story in the first place,
Okay.
then, because I agree with you, because it's been my experience that you can send, it was more in the music business for me, where I'd like try and get, in the 90s, try and get WBCN to play our stupid 45 on the actual radio when there's an actual DJ, and we'd send pizzas with the record tape to it and stuff like that, and it never works.
Yeah.
But then one time later in life, I did something that was remarkable, and then it was on CNN.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I sent a pizza to CNN. It was because the story was worth telling,
Yeah.
right?
Or it could be, it was because you threw a big party and you invited David Byrne, and
Mm.
and the reporters wanted to show up because they wanted to meet David Byrne. And
Yeah,
then, oh
yeah,
my gosh, this music is amazing. So
yeah.
I could see the Red Cross maybe throwing a novel PR type event
Mm.
that maybe has some kind of community focus, or is helpful in some way in drawing attention to that story.
Okay, so right, so then you've got two things occur to me: this sort of Alice Cooper, Virgin Galactic, what's his name, Richard Branson stunts,
Right.
and then you've also got um, uh, like galas, or like these big,
Mm-hmm.
where it's just like an award show, like that's just totally made up. Like a bunch of people just decided to make up this thing, and and then it attracts all of this attention. Because it attracts all of this attention, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy if you can get it off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So like it almost feels like you got, in this one hand, you could, probably in this particular example, the president or the CEO, or certainly not Alice, is going to do some stunt like jump off a, whatever.
Yeah.
But but like event planning, I assume, is not in your sweet spot.
I would say maybe concepting, but not fulfilling.
Okay. So what do you think Alice would think about that? So if you said, let's say there's maybe it's is like an awards gala, the kind of thing you can
Awards
think of?
gala, or it could be, hey, the Red Cross is going to be teaching everyone, weather preparedness. Something awful just happened in another area. The Red Cross is super helpful there. And now they're going to be teaching preparedness to the community at XYZ place.
Okay.
It could be something like that.
Okay. I was thinking more like a hot sauce contest, but yeah, but in the example. So that's pretty, yes, this is the idea though. This is the idea.
Yeah,
so it's like if you had, like, for them, hits in mainstream media or major media outlets is the same as me wanting to be on big podcasts.
Yeah.
And I just trust that good things are going to happen after that. They're going to involve me making more money.
Mm-hmm.
They are the same way. And well, in this if our little fantasy that we're constructing here is roughly accurate, and it boils down to more donations.
Yeah.
So if you don't need to know exactly how much they think they're going to get, but if you're in the ballpark of like, oh, this could be an extra $100,000 a month or $1 million a month or something, if we could get this on NPR about this, but get this story on NPR, and then you could reverse engineer. I mean, you've got the reality of whatever just happened, and there's some actual facts, there's some actual situation, but then you could sort of imagine like, okay, and I want Ira Glass to talk about this. So like, what does Ira Glass care about that happened over here? And how can I tie these two things together in perhaps in a whether it's an event or it's probably an event, some kind of thing that you can just see, oh, this would make a perfect segment on This American Life. This would be perfect.
Yeah.
Maybe you do some of the groundwork that his team would have done to kind of like, right. And send people out there to the disaster area, and like, they're going to come and help with the preparedness event at the, at the schools or something, but craft the event with Ira Glass in mind specifically.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so if you had unlimited money to do that, you could do it. Right. And probably Alice would be like, oh, that might work. Like that makes sense. So let's jump back. What does Alice think you're going to do? Like, how wild, if you said, okay, here are three options. One is $10,000. I craft the story around the thing that happened. We take that. That's the story. That's the message that you want to have getting out. I optimize that to the extent that I can, and that's $10,000. Next here, I sit with three top executives who are normally getting microphones shoved in their face, and we do media training with them. Maybe you have a team that helps you with that, and that's $22,000, and it'll take and we got to get on their calendars. And then for $50,000, I'm going to go interview people that were there and start creating more story, like the what's that called? The not slice of life, but you know what I mean. Like you get like the people at the Red Cross know what happened and can tell you the details, but they probably didn't interview a whole bunch of individuals. Right. So maybe you say, for $50,000, I'm going to go out, I'm going to interview all these people, find an angle, and then we can take, maybe there's this event where we do the preparedness, which I think is a cool tie-in. That would definitely get local coverage, I would think. Yeah. And then but I would do all of that in service of the exact people who are going to be turned on by the idea, and the exact format of the show, and the exact, what do you call it? Their worldview. So like the kinds of stories that Ira Glass wants to tell are very different from the kinds of stories that they want to tell on Fox News or some other channel. So there's like a certain kind of story that gets a lot of play.
Yeah.
So how wild would that sound to Alice?
Honestly, something in following your model, something that I've had a hard time wrapping my mind around is how to differentiate between those options.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you laid it out just makes perfect sense.
Cool.
Uh, so I think she would see them each as valid options. And then it would just be, there's no way, option three, cool idea. No way I'm going to get budget approved for that. I can try.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, at the same time, option one and two, absolutely doable. Um,
Cool.
so, so yeah, this is making more sense to me. What the part though? What if option three takes 6 months to implement?
Well, you'd scope it so that the price made sense.
Okay.
So if we're talking about like, let's just stick with this number is probably too low for the example, but we'll screw it. It's $1 million annual thing. If they get a hit in a big media hit, it's that they like, that's good and reflects nicely on them. Let's just say they believe that that could probably lead to an increase of $1 million in annual donations. So if it's $1 million in annual donations and you're going to contribute just a small piece of that, like you can't control a lot of stuff downstream of
Right.
your piece, but you can make a major contribution. And so, or at least a minor contribution. So that's like what, 10%, 20, 15%, 20, 10% is $100,000.
Yeah.
That's what, like if your option one was $100,000, it's probably more money than you need to do the option one we described. And people would be like, no. But at $500,000 for option three, then you'd say, okay, if I had $500,000, you could definitely do that for 500 grand. You could make a
Yeah.
low budget indie film for that much
Totally.
money.
Yeah.
So once you have a rough number, just with like the correct number of zeros on it, it doesn't have to be real close, but for an annual improvement for the cost savings or revenue increase or donation increase, then you just reverse engineer like, okay, if I had 10% of that, like they wouldn't be talking to you if they didn't think you could contribute like 10%.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be wasting her time. Alice wouldn't bother talking to you if she didn't think you could help even that much. So, all right. So if 10%, what are all the things that I would do to move the needle? And then at the next one, the next tier up, same thing. What more could I do? Next tier up, what more could I do?
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that you going to the disaster site and interviewing people or sending
Mm-hmm.
a camera crew to go like interview people, is probably doesn't fit into a $50,000
Mm-hmm.
engagement, leaving money for you. But it would fit into a $500,000. It would certainly fit
Yeah.
into probably into $100,000 one. So it really depends on what the number is. And then, because what you're trying to do, we have identified in Alice's case, the needle she wants to move is these mainstream media hits
Right.
with an accurate story in mainstream media. Okay. We don't really know what's going to happen after that, but it's probably going to turn into more donations. And we came up with 3, maybe 4 or 5 ways so far that you could move that needle.
Yeah.
So if you think that one of the funny things about this approach, working backwards from the value to the price to the cost, the tasks, the scope,
Mm-hmm.
is that sometimes the thing that you think of yourself as, let's say I'm a podcast booker, right? But then if you just limit yourself to that, then it's too limiting for some of the bigger options.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if I were really going to take this approach, I wouldn't think of myself as a podcast booker. I'd think of myself as something else. Maybe I get people on shows.
Hmm.
Yeah, but it's not this, like I send these emails and I create this one sheet. I email these people and then that's my job. Those are the activities that I do.
Right.
You can think way more creatively and it can almost threaten your identity a little bit because you're like, well, I'm not sending a camera crew to Lake Forest. I mean,
Right.
I don't know how to do that. I don't do that. I'm a communications specialist. And that's like a director type of thing or like a producer type of thing to do. But who cares? Like if that's what you have to do to move the needle and you've got the budget to do it, just hire people to do it.
Right. The option 3 you detailed, it what comes out of it has more of a reputation impact than that one final result that we're driving toward, because you can use those assets in, myriad ways.
Right.
So selling it gets a little bit easier once you look at it from that. I mean, it's really a total reputation package.
I like that.
Option, yeah,
Yeah. And think of
yeah,
how that would differentiate you from someone who's just going to be sending out press releases.
right,
Yeah.
right, yeah, love it. You did it again,
Cool.
Jonathan.
I feel like we really cobbled together an example there. That was a rough one, but I think it's close enough that it would get people's gears turning with the specifics of, the listener, whatever they do, and get the gears turning and like, okay, I'm really thinking about moving this needle,
Hmm.
and I might use activities, or I might do things to move that needle that I wouldn't normally consider part of my job.
Right.
That's the key piece.
Yeah. And just having an open mind
Yeah.
about, yeah,
It's fun if you're creative. Like it's really fun because you can come up with like crazy ideas. And we both know, like, yeah, that's way more likely to get you on NPR.
right.
Way more. Maybe the
Absolutely.
PI and the putting flyers under their windshield wipers probably not going to work.
Jonathan, that was a new one.
Direct mail.
Yeah. Anyway, yes, that you've given me a new way of thinking about it. And you have great frameworks. Your guides have helped me really get my business off the ground
Oh, good.
and see it as a viable option for me. I was on a career break, didn't know what to do next, assumed that would be in-house somewhere. And in starting to take on small projects and finding your value pricing advice, it's allowed me to think bigger and really professionalize my business in a way that I wouldn't have been able to without you. Um,
Wow.
and I will
Thanks.
say the pricing has been a differentiator that clients really like it. I think a lot of communications consultants do bill by the hour.
Mm.
And by, offering advisory retainers or pricing by project, people like it and see it as a differentiator.
Yeah. Most people that have experience paying people by the hour don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. For project work, oof. Well, cool. Well, where can someone go if someone from the if Alice from the Red Cross is listening? Where can she go to find out more about you?
So I would look on LinkedIn, Safranek Consulting Solutions. That's where I'm hanging my hat for now, and
Cool.
I've got a little bit of content there, and that's where you can find me.
Great. All right, you heard it here first, Alice. Well, thanks for joining me, Lynn. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, folks, that's it for this week. I'm Jonathan Stark, and I hope you join me again next time for Ditching Hourly. Bye.